you surprised when you witnessed the events of January 6, 2021? Black folks weren't. I know I wasn't. Let's get right into it. Hello again, J-Spot peeps, and welcome back to the J-Spot. I'm your host, Mr. J. And for those of you who have subscribed thus far, thank you so much for your support. We really do appreciate it. And for those of you who are stopping by for the first time, welcome. And we appreciate it if you would subscribe. Drop us a like, drop us a comment, and make sure that you hit that notification bell so you can be notified when we upload content going forward. For those of you who know this platform, and for those of you who are first-time viewers, this platform is about discovery, rediscovery, resurrection, and purpose. And I am committed to that. Sometimes a discovery is not necessarily a spiritual thing, which is what I like to, segue into most of the time. Oh, and by the way, you might notice I don't have my shades on today. My eyes clearing up, so I'm not incognito, as it were. But at my core, I'm a social justice advocate. I really am. I despise anything that even resembles racial injustice, hate of any kind toward anyone. And as I said earlier in another video, I wrote for several newspapers. I wrote for magazines. I had a radio show, online radio talk show, under the umbrella of Hot Topics Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. Real World News Radio. It's a political talk show. And with that talk show, I had a blog called The J-Spot, which is where I got this name for this spot, The J-Spot. But I wrote plenty of articles, and a lot of my articles that I wrote were about racial injustice, political injustice, political shenanigans. And as I said before, coming up, my father and my brothers and my sister and my mother, my nickname among them was Bird. And growing up in the segregated South in the 60s, I had a bird's eye view, as it were, of a lot of racial injustice. Even though I was a young boy, I experienced it. We went to a segregated school. Brown versus Board was in 1954. That town didn't integrate schools until 1970, 16 years later. So that gives you some idea what kind of attitude they had and how they fought that. But I experienced, slurs, rocks thrown at me, people spitting at me. The movie theater, we had to go in the back and go up the stairs to the balcony. At the time, I had no idea why we had to do that. We couldn't sit downstairs. There were restaurants and grills and little diner grills. We weren't allowed to go in there. We had to be served through a window on the side of the building. And so, at my core, because of the environment that I was brought up in, I saw a lot of things that stayed with me and still haunt me. They don't haunt me, but they inform my decision making and how I see things. And so when January 6th happened in 2021, I wasn't surprised. I was shocked to see it, but I wasn't surprised that it happened because I knew. For those of us who knew, we weren't surprised. But what did surprise me is that, and even to this day, people don't talk about the micro of the situation. They talk about it in the macro. how large the crowd was and the spectacle of the crowd. But they don't talk about the micro, about the people who actually make up that crowd, made up that crowd. The police officers who we trust to protect and serve. The lawyers who we trust will give us a fair representation in court. The judges whom we trust will give us a fair shake. The jurors who are supposed to be our peers, whom we trust to judge us fairly. The mom and pop business owners in our community, whom we trust when we walk into their store, will give us a fair price. The school teachers whom we trust with our children's future, to give them the same type of attention that they give the white culture. The firefighter whom we trust to give his all when he's trying to save our home or our business. The doctor whom we trust will give us a correct diagnosis and give us the medications that our illness requires, and not think of us as being able to tolerate pain more than other cultures. The restaurant owners, the busboy, the waitresses, the cooks, whom we trust don't sabotage our orders when we go into their restaurants. Those are the people that made up. And our neighbors who smile at us when they come outside and see us in the driveway, but are secretly saying in their hearts, I hate your guts. I'll never forget, I was watching a movie, Hannibal, 20-something years ago. And there's a scene in it where the police officer is trying to capture Hannibal. He's trying to get his fingerprints. So he goes up to the library where Hannibal is working and living, under the guise that he's going to pick up the suitcases that the previous librarian left there. So he's going to get Hannibal to help him carry them, hoping that he can get his fingerprints off of the handles. But while he's there, Hannibal's talking to the man about his ancestors. He says, oh, you had a relative that lived here in this town about 500 years ago, and he murdered someone. I would imagine that living here with that last name is a little difficult. And the police officer says, no one's ever brought it up before until you just did. And Hannibal looks at the guy, and I never forgot this line. He said, people don't always tell you what they're thinking. They just see to it that you don't advance in life. That left an indelible mark on my soul, because it encapsulated in such a short sentence everything that I had been witnessing since I was a child. The smiles, the nice southern comfort accent. But deep in their heart, I wish you were dead. I wish you were dead. You're nothing but an animal to me. You're nothing but property to me. And I am entitled to run roughshod over you or anyone else who is not like me, and to take what I believe is rightfully mine, even though it's not. That's what we witnessed on January 6, 2021. That's what we witnessed. That's what we're witnessing today in 2025. And I believe that a lot of those people who stormed the Capitol in 2021 represent the very type of people who never tell you what they're thinking, but see to it that you never advance in life. And so, after, like 4 days after January 6th, on January 10th, 2021, I wrote an article. And I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to read it to you. The article was titled, A Dark White Day. January 6, 2021, the day we witnessed the attitude that brought slavery to America's shores. It should come as no surprise that many of the insurrectionists who barnstormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th of 2021 of this year see themselves as patriots. After all, slave-holding so-called patriots drafted the U.S. Constitution. And did not another faux patriot, U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice Roger P. Taney, author the infamous Dred Scott decision, which decided that African Americans, and I quote, had no rights which the white man was bound to respect. Taney's statue in the Capitol remains to this day one of the most fiercely debated topics. White America has long portrayed itself as heroes, a godlike euphemism for patriotism. Be they fairy tales, wives' tales, mythical tales, historical tales, or stories of war, white Americans always somehow manage to rub just enough stink off of themselves to come out smelling like a rose. Men like John Wayne and Gary Cooper, defending white womanhood from indigenous people whose land they stole, are just two of many, many examples. So too Ron Ely as Tarzan, a fantastical farce about a white man who just happened to be raised by apes, but magically after a few years could speak ape better than the ape itself, and communicate better again with the animals that the indigenous people who had lived with the very same animals for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. And of course, every week, Tarzan is the conquering hero. But this is the attitude. We're better than everyone else, everything else, anywhere else. And even when whites know the stink is on them, they expect that their whiteness serves as some sort of cleanser, a moral disinfectant, if you will, that exempts them from blame, allows them to blame someone else, absolves them of responsibility, and most audacious of all, entitles them to forgiveness from the very people whom they've harmed. Case in point, even right now, 2025, you go on YouTube, there are plenty of videos of white folks begging black folks to forgive them for voting for Trump. When they voted for Trump, they hurt the very black folks they're begging forgiveness from. In the 1958 drama film, The Defiant Ones, two escaped prisoners, one black, one white, Sidney Poitier, Tony Curtis, are shackled together and are forced to coexist in harmony in order to survive. While chasing a train, Poitier is able to board, but then jumps off when he realizes that Curtis won't make it. Author and activist James Baldwin addresses this absurdity in his posthumous documentary, I Am Not Your Negro. Baldwin says in the documentary, and I quote, "While white liberals may have been relieved, black audiences are yelling, 'Get back on that train, you fool!' The black man jumps off the train in order to reassure white people, to make them know that they are not hated." But this is the attitude. So what if we stole your land, raped you and murdered you in your sleep? So what if we enslaved, raped, and murdered you? Our whiteness entitles us to your forgiveness. Think of all the movies where a rogue alcoholic cop is tasked with solving the most unsolvable crime, or the disgraced engineer or geologist who was called upon to save the world from an out-of-control meteorite. Somehow the sins of your past don't matter if you're white. Oh, and did I mention real-life cops that murder on video in one city, get fired, and then get hired in another city? No one witnessed OJ's alleged crime, and yet, despite being found not guilty, OJ remained, to the day he died, a pariah in the eyes of white folks. But this is the attitude. No matter how high you climb the ladder of success, as a black person in America, you're still beneath us, is what they believe. If we say you're guilty, you're guilty. Make no mistake, folks. These are the very attitudes that brought slavery to the shores of America. The delusional, paranoid attitudes that would not object if slavery was still in America, and are working hard to make it so. These are the very same attitudes that gave rise to what we all witnessed on January 6, 2021. The fear that trailer park whiteness is no longer viewed as better than ghetto blackness. Not convinced yet? Perhaps this will do it. One insurrectionist was overheard saying this to some of her fellow seditionists on January 6, 2021. "This is not America," a woman said to a small group, her voice shaking. She was crying, and this is a direct quote. She was crying, hysterical. "They're shooting at us. They're supposed to shoot Black Lives Matter, but they're shooting the patriots." A man, possibly her husband, comforted her. "Don't worry, honey. We showed them today. We showed them what we're all about." Yeah, you did. But most of us already knew. Thank you once again, J-Spot peeps, for spending some of your valuable time here with me in the J-Spot. Thank you for your support, all of you who have subscribed thus far. And those of you who dropped in for the first time, thank you also. Please subscribe, drop a comment, drop a like, share this content with your family and your friends. And please, come back to see me, because we have a lot more discovering to do and a lot more purpose to pursue. In the meantime, peace.